Hi, it's Sarah here from Crafting and Stamping, and I'm back with another set of quick tips. And the tips today are about using some of the papers that we've got for a kind of spotlighting technique. There are different ways to do spotlighting, and with some of them you're adding a bit of colour to something that's got mainly monotone or black and white backgrounds. In this particular case, we're going to spotlight items within a scene. So this is why these papers, the One Horse Open Sleigh DSP pack, is really quite good for this. There's a couple in particular that I want to point out because I think that the spotlighting works best when something is separate and different from the background. So we've got trees in this background, but then we've got this little fawn here. We've got again trees in the background, and we've got the fox. If we were to go with something like this, the tree is really similar to the other trees, etc. So these are not necessarily ones that I would choose to spotlight. However, what you could do is choose an area and stamp or die cut something to put into that you're then going to spotlight. You'll understand, I think, what I mean by the spotlighting as we sort of go along. So the way that I'm going to spotlight is I'm just going to use a couple of dies, nesting dies, in this particular case, and I'm going to actually go with the fawn and use these circle dies from the Stylish Shapes die set. But just to give you an idea, with the fox in particular, this works very well with the Something Fancy dies, and you could die cut out the fox. We're going to then have a layer that gets popped up on that is darker, and the great thing about that is if you cut this paper to suit this layout, what you can do is have the fox down here looking up kind of that way, and then you could have the sentiment using the same dies up here. So that's one way that that's a particularly good way, I think, that you could do that. But what I'm going to do is actually use this one here. So I'm going to use the little Bambi in the middle of the woodland, and part of that is because we've got this area here that is lovely and clean and bright, that we can simply stamp our sentiment onto that area. So I have already cut my piece out of this. So what I chose to do, I wanted this area so that I can stamp into it, a good amount of it. And I just decided to come in about equal from either side. What I'm trying to do is make sure that my little fawn is central to this. So this is going to go on an A6 Early Espresso card base, and I did double check. I can go with the smaller circle for the fawn, and then I've die cut from Early Espresso, and that is going to be our mat for this. So that's just a full sheet so that you can see where I'm working from. And now we'll die cut out this piece, this one here. So I'll just bring in my cut and emboss machine, and not that easy to get. You'll see this as it runs through. So let me just move. So what I've done is centered the fawn in the die. I'm just trying to make sure that the die is kind of central side to side. It'll look a little bit out of place if not. So I'll run that through. And now you'll be able to see a little bit better. So what I've done. So we've therefore got our card front layer and our deer. And there just seems to be a bit of something snuck onto there, so let's just erase that away, so that what we can do, that is going to go onto there, and then that is going to go popped up onto there, and we're just going to make sure that our trees are lined up when we pop them together. So that is our sort of spotlighting technique, and you don't need 2 sheets, as you can see. You're just actually cutting out of the one. So I'm going to use my seal around the edges, but also just around the circle as well, because I don't want this to be lifting up. So we'll just do that, and we'll pop that onto our card front, nice and central. And I should have stamped this first, because if I make a mistake, I'm done for. So that's a mistake that I've made this time. I was planning on stamping my sentiment here, but it's always best for me to keep my mistakes in so that you see what happens. Where have I put my ink pad? There. So I'm going to risk this. If I make a mistake, I can always stamp a label and put it over the top. But it would have been much better for me to stamp this before adhering it to the card front. There we are. I've got away with it. And then I now need to make sure that I don't smudge it as well. So just stamped that, and this is it. I've got that little bit of a tree trunk there, which frames that sentiment quite nicely. And that is from the Brightest Glow stamp set. But of course you can mix and match these as you wish. So I now need to make sure that I get this centered within my other circle. And then I'm going to get some dimensionals for popping this up. And I'm just going to pop the dimensionals a little bit more centered. I don't want them kind of overlapping the ridge here. So I still want them spread out, but not right to the edges. And again, like I say, I'm making sure, as you could see, that's a little bit off. So I'm making sure that my tree trunks are lined up. There we are. And then I am just going to finish this with some of the snowflakes. The self-adhesive snowflakes, and I'm going for these copper ones. And I'll start with the largest one at the top, and I think we'll go with it just there. And then I want a medium one, and we'll have that over there. And then the smallest one we'll just have down here, kind of like that. And there we have our card. So as I say, the main tip with this is to use nesting dies for creating the spotlighting technique. If you don't have nesting dies that match, you may be able to put 2 different ones together. For example, we've got this one from the Lights of Glow set, and this one could go in the centre of this one, just as an example. So, but as I say, the thing to do is have a little look and see what fits the scene, and then make sure that you cut your paper so that you've got the correct part of the scene within it. Okay, please do subscribe to my channel below to see quick tips like this every Friday. I do a quick card on a Monday, and please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for stopping by.